So we're going to start by logging into Zoom. So you're going to navigate to zoom.us over here, get to their main page, and you're going to go over to the right-hand side and click Sign In. So then once we're in Sign In, you're going to scroll down and click Sign In with SSO. That's going to bring us to this page, and you're going to type in over here, Concordia CA. Okay, that is our company domain, and we're going to click Continue. So it's already got my login credentials. So important to note over here is that you need to use your employee net name in order to get access to the Concordia Zoom. So we're going to sign in. And we're going to click, this is our current meeting, so the things that we have going on right now. So I'm going to click on the tutorial demo over here, and I'm going to click Start. If I wanted to set up a new meeting, so I'm going to schedule a new meeting. This is how we gave our tutorials and lectures. So I'm going to click on Schedule a New Meeting. So I'm going to call this meeting Tutorials. Okay, and now I can start looking at my options. So I can start picking dates over here. So let's say my tutorials are taking place on Saturdays. So I'm going to click on Saturday, and my tutorials are at 1 in the afternoon. That's fine, and they're going to be 1 hour long. That's okay. Really important, make sure you're in the right time zone. If this is not the right time zone on this sheet, I will show you, or on this page rather, I will show you where in the settings you can find that to make sure your default is correct. And let's say this is going to be on Saturday for the next couple of weeks, so I'm going to press Recurring Meeting. So it's going to be, let's say, a weekly occurrence on every Saturday, and it's going to end, let's say, after 7 occurrences or on a certain date. So that way I can keep the same link for everything, and I don't have to send out links every time I make a meeting. Registration, I'm not going to make it required, but I am going to put in a meeting password. Zoom will prompt you for a meeting password. It will give you a little warning symbol if you don't have a password, and that's just to avoid Zoom bombing. So for this password, I'm going to make it really simple. I'm going to say the password is Concordia, just so that we have a password, and that I will display on the Moodle page when I post this. So this is really important. So for the video settings, I always leave the host one on, and I leave the participant one off. The students, it's up to them whether they want to have their video on or off, but I want to make sure that they don't get a surprise video on when they first log into the meeting. So they can choose to put their video on later if they want to, so leave that at off. Audio, I put both in case some students may have questionable internet connections and they may want to call in or call in with their computer, so leave that at both. And then I leave, so when your first couple of lectures, let's say you want to make sure that you are the first person in the meeting and you want to be able to control who has access to the meeting, you can disable the join before host. I like to leave it enabled in case the students want to log in before I do and just hang out and chat. But I usually try and be in the meetings at least 15 to 20 minutes early so that I can set up and answer any questions. Mute participants upon entry is really important. Always have this enabled so that when they sign in, they're automatically muted. If you'd like to enable the waiting room when you're first setting this up, you can. I have left mine disabled because you can actually change this once you're in the meeting. Another important thing is, let's say I want to assign an alternative host. I have to assign somebody who is also a Concordia.ca Zoom user. So I can't assign just anyone. So let's say I'm not teaching that day, then I have an alternative host here just in case. So now I'm going to click Save. And this is my meeting. So I can always, if I scroll down, I can always edit this meeting later on if I want to, or add polls, or there's all sorts of other functionality, but that's the basics. Another really important thing that you need to do before class starts is go into your own settings over here on the left-hand side. So if I click on settings, so these are my general settings for my account, for my Zoom account at Concordia. So go through all of these. They're very important. So this is the general, like these will dictate whenever I open a new meeting. These are the default settings that will appear in this meeting. And just scroll down and make sure that the correct things are enabled. So an example, so prevent participants from saving chat is probably a good idea just for everybody's privacy, but making sure that chat is enabled so that students can ask their questions via chat. Also, some students may not want to ask the group a question and may just want to message a certain individual or message the teacher individually, so make sure this is enabled. So sound notification when someone joins or leaves, this is can be very irritating. If the students, let's say, lose connection or come back in, you're going to get a chime every time somebody rejoins the meeting. So I would recommend having this disabled by default. File transfers can be very useful in case somebody wants to send something to the general course. Screen sharing. So by default, I have host only who can share their screen. For cases in which we need to actually see what the student is doing, we can actually change these settings in the Zoom meeting once it's already started. So that's not super critical. However, annotation, having your annotation enabled is really important because that will allow you, let's say a student says, oh, I'm not following where on the screen you're sharing are you pointing to, because there is often a lag for your mouse functionality on Zoom. So right now you can see my mouse as it's moving along, but in Zoom you might see the mouse here and then the mouse here and then the mouse here and then the mouse here. So it's there's the lag makes it very difficult to follow. So the annotation is useful because then you can actually circle stuff. You can draw on the screen and circle things. I haven't used the whiteboard, but if you want to, you can have that enabled. Remote control is also very useful. So this is not something you would do in a lecture, but maybe more on a one-on-one meeting with a student during office hours. So if a student, let's say, was trying to do something on a piece of software or a software tool, you could then gain control of their screen, of their actual computer, and you can go and click on stuff on their computer. So this is very useful for one-on-one feedback meetings. Breakout rooms, I've used them a few times. They're quite useful if you have to address a student one-on-one within a meeting or within a lecture or a tutorial setting, for example. And virtual background in case students want to enable it. This is very heavy for your computer, so I would use this with caution while you are teaching so that your computer doesn't melt or that you don't lose connection. And waiting room enabled, so you can have this enabled by default if you want to, and etc. If your time zone is not correct when you in your meeting settings, when you schedule a new meeting, you have to actually go into profile. So this is my profile, and if you scroll down, then you should see a date and time, and then time zone over here, and you can press edit to change the default settings.